Sam Carchidi, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi Chuck. Thanks for doing this.
Sam.
First question. Do you feel like you're going to be buyers or sellers in the coming weeks, or do you have to get closer to the trade deadline to determine that?
We're certainly not looking at selling right now. I would say to you, in my calls with managers around the league, first of all, I've received very few calls. It's been really quiet in terms of receiving calls. I've made many. I've been much more aggressive, I think, than a lot of people, just looking at different options. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of teams out there willing to take on dollars in term at this point in time, and there seem to be more teams maybe looking to move some pieces and take on pieces for various reasons. So, we'll take a look, and anything we do, we want to make sure it makes sense. If we can fill a box for the long term, right now, we can potentially explore that. But certainly if we can upgrade our team, we'll do that.
Sam, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. How much of the blame for this season do you think should be assigned to the coaches? Obviously, you've fallen back in several areas. Do you look at the coaches as part of the reason for that?
Well, it starts with me, Sam. I'm responsible for the overall direction of the team, and from hiring the coaches to bringing in the players. But at this point in time, everyone's accountable. We're all accountable for where we're at in the standings. Having said that, we're still in the middle of a playoff battle here. We're pushing to get back in, and certainly we've lacked consistency this year. That's been frustrating. Our goals against has been frustrating. But I also look on the positive side. 2 of our best games have been in the last week. And I think as a group, we know the recipe for success. We just have to find it a little bit more consistently.
Charlie O'Connor, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hey, Chuck. One of the big reasons it seemed like you were confident in the offseason that this was a good hockey team, even without making much in the way of outside additions, was the young talent you guys have, the expectation that they continue to develop or at least not regress. I guess, what's your degree of concern right now that organizationally you guys may have overrated the young talent?
Well, look, with young players, there's going to be ups and downs. I think we all recognize that. Certainly some of our young players haven't played to the same level that they played last year. I think long-term, a lot of these players are going to be good players in this league for a long time. And, there's been a lot of challenges this year. Certainly we haven't played as well as we wanted. I think it's a year you got to be a little bit careful, though, and overanalyzing the results. Clearly they matter for making the playoffs, and that's our goal. But long-term, there's been different challenges this year that you normally don't face. And some players have handled it better than others. Some teams have handled it better than others. But I think you want to be a little bit careful over analyzing the results of the season.
Dan Gelston, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Thanks. Chuck, you said it's been quiet, obviously, on the trade front. But, do you feel that you have to do something, whether it's big or even minor, to improve the defense or anything? Or is this team good enough, by and large, as it's constructed now, to make the playoffs?
Well, we're always looking to improve, and I think long term there's certainly some holes we probably need to fill to get to where we want to get to. For this year, I think we have a good hockey team. We've had a really tough month. I think at the end of February we're 11-4-3 after consecutive shutout wins in Buffalo, and I think our play had been a bit uneven to that point, but we had great results, and this month has not been good. We're 4-8-1. We've just gone through a very challenging stretch of 13 games in 21 days, and the results haven't been very good. So I do think we can rebound from this. I think we'll get a chance to catch our breath a little bit here. We don't have as many back-to-backs in the next little stretch here. We'll actually get a chance to have a practice or two. And I think we have a chance to reset a bit here. But, we have good players. We need to play better. But again, the last week we've had 2 of our best efforts, and the way we played in those games show me that we can be a good competitive team. And that's what we're going to try to focus on, is how do we get to that level on a more consistent basis.
Anthony Sanfilippo, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hey, Chuck. Following up on something you just said with Charlie's question, you mentioned that you'd be careful to not overanalyze the season, and I assume that that's because of how unique this season is with the schedule being so condensed and everything else, and not having a lot of practice time. But considering everybody in the league is kind of facing the same thing, why should we at this point not overanalyze what's happening with the team right now?
Well, as I said, Anthony, I think certain teams have handled it better than others. Certain players have handled things better than others. I think there's a massive a mental and emotional challenge this year. And again, I think in life, probably even among all of us, some people have handled it better than others. Some people have faced different challenges, and there's certainly some players that are not at the level they need to be at, and are not in a good place in some different ways. And there's probably a little bit more to their play than what everybody realizes. And I think we just got to be a little bit careful overanalyzing some of these young players that have shown to be good players in the past. And my expectation is that they'll find that path again.
Mike Sealski, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. If you zoom out from just this season, there's kind of a pattern for the franchise going back to maybe 2013, where miss the playoffs, make the playoffs, disappointing season, promising season. Do you see, how does this year, if at all, fit into that pattern? Is there some kind of connective thread there that you might see?
You know, I haven't been here that long. Last year was my first full season, and this is my second. And obviously, this year's hasn't been anywhere near like last year, and in large part because we're 30th in the league in goals against and 31st in save percentage, and we're giving up way too many goals. And last year we defended well as a 5-man unit, and we had strong goaltending. And this year we're not defending well as a 5-man unit, and our goaltending hasn't been at the same level. So that's what I see really from last year to this year. You know, our goal now is to get back and start to defend better. And just going back to the game on Monday night, I thought we did a great job. I thought our forwards managed the puck way better. I thought we had a very good F3. I thought we didn't give up a lot of odd man rushes. I think we only gave up one the whole game. And that allowed our D to have better gaps, and we got some saves. So, you know, the formula is, you know, I wouldn't say it's simple. If it's simple, you do it every night, but it's just getting that consistency of playing the right way up the ice, and allowing our D to defend better and hold the line better, and allowing our goalies not to face so many odd man rushes. And we've given up 27 goals off the rush this year, and that's the most in the league by far. You know, one of the hallmarks of our team last year was that we defended well. We did not give up those types of chances, and it starts up the ice, and you know, we put a lot of pressure on our D and our goaltenders by the way we play up the ice, and it's something that we feel we can fix, and we're going to have to do it quickly, but we feel we can fix that.
Jordan Hall, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. Thanks for doing this. With your goals against, you mentioned how you're giving up the second to most goals in the league, and that was drastically improved last season. How much is that due to missing Matt Niskanen, or how much is it due to just regression with the players on the roster and needing help outside?
Yeah, well, Matt was a great player for us, and clearly we didn't fill that, fill the void. That type of player is really difficult to find, but as good as Matt was for us last year, you know, it's a pretty massive variance in the goals against. So it's a team level effort right now, and again, we've had nights where we've defended really well, and that's what we have to get back to.
Ed Barkowitz, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hey, Chuck, thanks for your time. I wanted to go off topic a little bit and get your thoughts on this Tim Peel business. Were you surprised at this? And have you found this in talking to your players, sort of that kind of difficult attitude that referees might have?
You know, Ed, I really haven't looked into the matter much. I've been so focused on last night and making some calls today that I'm really not sure I'm fully aware of everything that went on there. So I'm probably best not to comment.
Sam Carchidi, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, can you assess the seasons of Oscar Lindblom and Nolan Patrick? And a second question is, do you see Sam Moran as being here at some point this season?
Well, I think both Oscar and Nolan are getting better. Again, Oscar went through a very difficult process with, chemo and battling cancer. And, I think he's getting better and better, getting his timing back. And I think with another full summer, I think he'll be even better next year. But he's starting to win more battles. He's starting to get to the right spots on the ice. He's making a few more plays. So we've seen a lot of progress with Oscar. Same with Nolan. It hasn't been reflected in the stats necessarily, but I've really liked this game recently. I thought he played very well on Monday night. He created some chances. Last night, I thought he was on pucks. He was skating. He was working. And I think both of them are getting better. As for Sam, I do expect that we'll see him again. He's playing some defense now, and Lehigh Valley has played forward. He's just trying to get his timing back. He's, different reasons, but similar to the first two players that you mentioned, in that he's missed a lot of time. And again, it just takes time to get back up to the pace of play.
Charlie O'Connor, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hey, Chuck.
Charlie.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that the two games in the last week have been some of your best games this season. I'm assuming you're referencing the Islanders 4-3 win and then the loss on Monday. But even if they were good games, maybe process-wise, one was a loss and one took a last-minute goal. I guess the question I have is, if those are the best games that you guys have had, or some of the best, how can fans be confident that if that's the best that it can get, if that makes sense?
Well, the Islanders are a pretty good team. I just think you look at the scoring chances we gave up in both, and even in the third period of that game last Thursday against the Islanders, we really didn't give up much. I think they scored on their first shot halfway through the period, and it got a little scrambly at the end after they tied it up. But we were giving up a lot of grade A chances, and we really didn't give up much against the Islanders on Monday. So it's more than just process. It's process is part of it, but it's just the raw number of chances you're giving up. It's the raw number of odd man rushes you're giving up. It's giving yourself a chance to play the game the right way and have the puck a little bit. And we did that well in both games.
Bill Meltzer, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, I just wondered if you have any updates on the rehab progress of Morgan Frost and what your impressions are of the Phantoms players that we were talking about before the season of maybe being ready to come and compete, but have had injury issues such as Allison and Lisinski.
Well, with Morgan, I just talked to Jimmy McCrossan today. I think he's about 8 weeks post-surgery. He's doing really well. I think we're hoping he can start to get back on the ice in the next couple of weeks from a conditioning standpoint. I think best case scenario would be he may have a chance to come back by the end of the season. But even if that doesn't happen and he's going to be fully healthy by the end of the season, by the end of May, and that will give him a full summer to rehab and train like he normally would. So he'll be through the rehab process, and he'll be able to, work on his strength and speed and quickness and get ready for camp next year. So he's doing very well, probably a little bit ahead of schedule. As for, first of all, that Lehigh Valley team's a lot of fun to watch. They play hard. They play well. I think they've won 5 games in overtime. There's a lot of talent down there. It's been a little frustrating in the sense that a lot of those kids have all dealt with injuries or COVID or both in a few cases. So, I don't think some of them have the game reps that we hope they would have at this point in time to maybe factor into a call-up role right now. But they're gaining experience or gaining games. They're getting some of that now, and maybe in the next week or two, some of those kids will get a chance to play up there.
Wayne Fish, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. Could you evaluate
Hey, Wayne.
Carter's play, and what does he have to do to get his confidence back?
Well, I'm not sure for the second part of that, Wayne. That's confidence is a funny thing. It's a results business, and when you're not getting results, sometimes it's hard to feel you're on top of your game. But Carter is a young guy. He had some success last year. This year, you know, he hasn't played at the same level. There's no question. He's struggled, particularly this month. I think our goals against and our goaltending in particular, the first 2 months was pretty good, and they won us some games. This month, both goaltenders have struggled, in my opinion. But you look back at a young Carey Price at the age of 22, Connor Hellebuck, Marc-Andre Fleury, just going through some names. All of those great goaltenders had some ups and downs early in their career and had some tough seasons. And it's a hard position. And I believe in Carter. I believe in his talent, and I believe he'll be a very good goalie for this franchise for a long time. But clearly, right now, he's not on top of his game.
Greg Wyshynski, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks a lot. Chuck, following up on the Carter Hart bit, you mentioned before there were some players that have handled this quarantine stuff and this untraditional season better than others, and particularly young players have been impacted by it. And, you know, from an outsider's perspective, obviously Carter's not having anywhere near the season that he's had previously. Is he one of those players that's been impacted by the way of the world these days?
I think all those young single guys that live alone have had to deal with different issues, like all of us have during this. But you know, I don't know that I want to get into naming names and singling it out just from a privacy standpoint. But you know, clearly, I think that the married guys have probably had it a little bit easier than the single guys that you know, like a lot of people in society, or you know, you get stuck. You know, you get stuck a little bit. There's no question.
Russ Joy, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Chuck, given the way that the season has played out defensively and Carter struggling, and with Phil and Travis maybe not taking that step forward, when you go back and analyze your offseason and maybe even the early season trade market, is there any regret on your part for not addressing the top four of this defense better? Whether that was, you know, attracting a guy with term and money in free agency, or if that might be attaching a prospect or a pick that you might not have otherwise wanted to part with in a trade to incentivize another team to consider a deal.
Well, we aggressively looked at a lot of options this offseason, and you know, certainly our cap situation was not helpful for adding significant dollars without moving significant dollars, and we looked at a lot of different things, and you know, this is what we ended up with. So, you know, I think I said to somebody earlier, I don't think I ever spent more time on the phone than I did this offseason, and for various reasons, you know, things didn't break our way the way we had hoped, and it's a flat cap era, and most teams are not looking to take on any money or any term right now, and you know, to add a player with dollars, you have to subtract the same amount, and those types of trades are a little bit more difficult to make.
We'll do a few more questions. Charlie O'Connor, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize my hand was still up.
That's okay. Jordan Hall, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Hi, Chuck. Just wondering what you've made of the signing of Erik Gustafsson. I know when at the time of the signing, you felt Erik and Shane Gostisbehere could share the same lineup and be effective in the same game, but it seems like they've both been kind of competing for spots in the lineup. Just what have you thought of Gustafsson's play?
I think Erik, he had a bit of a tough start. I think this first game was pretty good. Then he had a couple that he didn't play as well. I think lately he's played pretty well. And, you know, he's as advertised. He's good on the power play. He's one of our best defensemen at exiting the D zone. You know, I think there's games when we played both Shane and Erik, they played well, and both have played well. And there's been games when they both haven't played well. I mean, I don't know that, you know, we've had a lot of inconsistent performances from a lot of our players. So it's, you know, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think Erik is you know, has played probably as advertised, and you know, I think the makeup of our group probably is not right. I think that's a fair comment. I think we do need to address that going forward to get the right mix, and certainly some of our young players, you know, need to continue to take steps. So there's, you know, I think our back end, like the rest of our team, needs to get better. But overall our team defense has been a collective effort. I mean, we just haven't been good enough in any aspect of the game yet.
Anthony Sanfilippo, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, I want to get back to one more thing about Carter real quick. Usually when young goalies struggle, it's usually something that's mechanical that needs to be worked on and fixed. Does the constraints of the fact that you don't have as much time to practice kind of really put a limit to how much he can probably fix within this season, and is probably something that he needs more like an off season to kind of get back to where he needs to be?
Well, I know Kim Dillabow and Carter are working hard every day. And, like you look at last Monday, we chose to dress Alex Lyon as the backup to Moose. And we spent extra time with Carter that day to give him a little bit more work and get him ready for last night. And I thought he played pretty well last night. He battled, he made some big saves to keep that game close enough where we could try to make a comeback. So I do think you can make some adjustments in season. Clearly, the lack of practice time when you're struggling is not a benefit. I think specialty teams, goaltending, your defensive zone coverage, there's a lot of areas that if you're not on top of your game, obviously the lack of practice time doesn't help. But every team is dealing with that. But I do think Carter's working hard with Dilly every day. And personally, I've seen some improvements and I do think he can get it back during the season.
Last question, Bill Meltzer, you're on with Chuck. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chuck, you talked about how potential trade partners are not necessarily willing to take on salary. I'm wondering, if there's been any difference this season in terms of interest level and taking on draft pick assets, at least for 2021, just because of what a disjointed year it's been, for a lot of these leagues are scouting in.
Yeah, I talked to a couple teams that are more, prefer to take the picks in 22 for that very reason, to have more certainty. In some cases, some teams have let some of their scouts go and don't feel they've had the coverage that they normally would. And I've spoken to other teams that see opportunity in 21 because they feel that, there could be more randomness and having more picks. You might be able to get some pretty good players in the mid and late rounds because of the lack of viewing. So, I'm not sure there's a consensus on that, but I've seen it both ways.
Okay, Chuck, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.